So let's do a deal. Playing for the Democrats tonight, Mark Warner, Democrat from Virginia, and for the Republicans, Tom Coburn of Oklahoma. Good to see you both.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
And I know you've both been on this show a lot, talking about ideas and compromise, gang of six, and here you are tonight. So let's see what we can do. You're right now in the middle of conversations, right, Senator Coburn?
That's correct.
And how close are you to something that could be significant in your group?
Well, I think we're close. The point is to get the politics out of it, the presidential politics out of it, and actually work on the real problems. And that still has some influence as we work, because there's political jockeying for what's going to happen in November, and what we need to do is throw all that out and start thinking about the best long-term position for the country.
Senator Warner, both of you have been doing that, and it seems like you've accepted a lot of cuts. He's accepted some tax increases, revenue increases. I mean, this is a deal.
And we found a plan to get us between $4 and $5 trillion over the next 10 years off our debt. It's not perfect. It wouldn't be exactly what Tom wanted or exactly what I wanted.
Right.
But at the end of the day, the alternative, go back to the lemmings. We're going over this cliff. There should be no elected official that will have any excuse come the end of this year to say they didn't see it coming. So we've got to get out of our foxholes. I think there is a majority in the Senate. I think there's even a majority in the House. We've got to make it safe for folks to do the right thing. And as Tom has said, that means you're going to probably make some folks mad along the way. But at the end of the day, the value add, not just to our economy, but to just the overall confidence in our institutions would be enormous.
And do you think that the American people now are ready to hear there'll be cuts to Medicare?
I think that's one failure of the president. It is one of the things we lack right now in this problem is leadership. If the president were to stand up and say, folks, we have this big problem coming, and here's the problem, and define it accurately and say there's all sorts of solutions. What we ought to do is make the process work. The reason I voted for Bowles-Simpson is I wanted to get it on the floor of the Senate, so the Senate could do its work, and then have everybody vote and defend their votes on what they think is the best solution to it. But ultimately, we can come to an agreement on the Senate floor. So a Bowles-Simpson start is a wonderful start. It's not everything I'd want, it's not everything Mark would want, but we'd have a chance to amend that and come up with what the Senate, have the House do the same thing, put it in conference, and let's actually send a signal to the world that we're going to fix our problems. It'll change our economy tomorrow if we did that in terms of growth.
Oh, it would and confidence in the debt rating, which would count up. We're going to get to 365 days soon since we lost that rating.
Remember, we've got American business is sitting on $2.5 trillion in cash on their balance sheets, giving them the predictability that we kind of got a rationalized tax code, that we're going to meet our obligations, and a tax code that's simpler, as well as an entitlement programs that can be sustainable over 50 years. I think that will be a job generator as much as any single program that either of the presidential candidates have.
Are you frustrated, and do you think the conversation would be different if the president had come out early and endorsed Simpson-Bowles?
Listen, I think the president should have done more to explain the problem. He did come out and endorse our Gang of Six plan.
Yes.
I think that it maybe cost some votes. I think there are some folks, particularly in the House, that if the president endorses anything, it will be immediately assigned why they can't be for it. I think in many ways it falls then to a group of bipartisan senators who are willing to take the first set of arrows from both sides, and both of us have, to lay out a plan, and I think the president will be supportive of that.
And I want to ask you all about something, this issue of democracy, which I brought up with Speaker Boehner today, that, we've got a payroll tax cut that is important to people right now, but once people have these things, it becomes hard to take them away. The Bush tax cut's a great example.
I voted against it because it wasn't paid for.
I did too. I voted against it as well.
All right, so you're that's on the same page on that as well. I wanted just to play a soundbite, though, about what President Clinton said about the Bush tax cuts and get your reaction. Here he is.
You could tax me at 100% and you wouldn't balance the budget. We are all going to have to contribute to this, and if middle-class people's wages were growing up again and we had some growth in the economy, I don't think they would object to going back to the tax rates that obtained when I was president.
Are we eventually going to be able to have those tax rates go away? Because we've all looked at the numbers. If they go away for everybody, it's $2.8 trillion. That's more than half of the cuts you've worked to get.
$4.5 trillion. So, and no one's talking about putting them all back in, but I agree with President Clinton. Beyond 2x of poverty, everybody's going to have some skin in the game. And even if it's a de minimis amount, because this is a national crisis. Admiral Mullen, former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, said this debt and deficit issue is a greater threat than terrorism.
I think the approach ought to be is how do you stimulate the economy and have a fair tax system?
Right.
And I don't think we had it right during the Clinton years. I don't think we had it right during the Bush years. But first of all, we passed the Bush tax cuts and didn't cut spending to pay for it, so we widened our deficit.
Right.
So it's easy to pass a tax cut. It's hard to pass a tax cut that you pay for. So, one of the things Speaker
because
Boehner...
a lot of, like in your party, some of them tend to believe that a tax cut just pays for itself.
Yeah,
magically.
well, sometimes it does, especially. But the key is how do you create long-term certainty and confidence so that the money that Mark talked about sitting on the side actually gets invested and we create wealth? If you create jobs without creating wealth, you haven't done anything for the economy. So you have to do it. And my worry, even though I'm for let's have the free-for-all, let's have the debate, if you tax the people who are the job creators, you've actually hurt our growth, and you've hurt the rise in tax revenues that would come to the government. What we know in the Reagan years is when you take away a lot of these deductions and a lot of these special things that people have lobbied for, and you flatten and it broadened the base, what you have is significant increased economic growth, 4.6% over 70 months. I mean, unbelievable.
But, you can actually have both, because disproportionately, folks at the top end, where I'm at, take more advantage of the tax breaks than others. So you can have a simpler code, you can have that predictability, and you can maintain the progressivity that I think is important, that allows those of us who've done well to say, all right, we're going to chip in to make sure that the next generation does well.
All right, well, thanks to both of you. I'm going to switch the Shakespeare line now. First thing we do, let's kill all the lawyers. How about let's just kill all the lobbyists? That'd be a smart
The lobbyists aren't the problem. The members of Congress are the problem.
Oh,
and
all
the
right.
business community and others who need to step up and say, this has to get fixed. We all got to have some skin in the game.
All right, thanks to both.
You bet.
And ahead out front is President Obama.